This video has been brought to you by Data Vinci Analytics Agency. Let's start this session first of all by understanding what exactly is event tracking, right? So if you are telling someone that we are going to do event tracking, then what is that? Or you are doing event tracking for your own self, then what is event tracking? Okay, now if you think over it and just try to understand this, then whatever tracking you are doing on web analytics is actually an event. Everything is an event only, right? But the fundamental event or the primary event is page view, right? And this is the event that is almost always available by default, right? Now popularly, any kind of tracking that you are doing, any other interaction that you are tracking for the user that is not a page view, then popularly that is called an event. All right, so examples can be clicks on various CTAs, video interactions, file downloads, form submissions, anything that you are tracking through your web analytics or that you are tracking as a user activity and sending it to your marketing platforms like Facebook or Google AdWords, or that you are sending to your analytics, anything that is not a page view call and you are tracking that, it is an event. Okay, so this is a basic definition that anything that you are tracking other than the page view can be called an event. Now in Google Analytics 4, everything is defined as an event, and even page views are called as page view event. Okay, so don't get too much confused over here. It is said that everything has been defined as events in Google Analytics. That is fine, but the fundamentals are still the same over here. You have a page view call by default, right? And if you have to define someone that we are going to enable event tracking, you can say comfortably that other than page view, if you are tracking anything else, that can also be an impression, or that can also be something where user is not interacting with but is coming up. So for example, a pop-up that came without the user interaction and you want to track how many times that pop-up came. So anything that you are tracking other than page view, you can say that I would track that with an event-based tracking. All right, now what we are going to see that in Google Analytics, what are the events which are available by default? The page view is definitely there, but Google Analytics gives the possibility to track certain things by default. So what are those? We are just going to look at that. Okay, if you have any doubts in what I have explained so far, please put them in the comment section below. Before moving further, I would like to invite you to join our free group on Facebook dedicated to the digital analytics community. Here we discuss various topics like conversion rate optimization, tag management, analysis and reporting, data visualization, and other related topics. All right, so I've put a link to this group in the description box below. You can simply click on that and you would be taken to this URL. Just click on join group and I will accept your request. So looking forward to meet you over here. Now, Google Analytics 4 is considerably different from Universal Analytics or Google Analytics 3 to say. And one of the things that is quite different and a feature that does not even exist in Adobe Analytics is that it tracks certain events by default. Right, so when you set up Google Analytics 4, and you can refer to my previous video where I have shared how to set up the basic page view tracking. So it has got something called streams, and in the same property you can get the streams from multiple domains, from multiple apps, right? And it will aggregate everything in the same property. Okay, and if you're using user ID, so the data amalgamation and session unification and other things would also happen. Right now, so this is a stream that we have for Data Vinci. You can refer to my video on how to create a stream, but if you look at it, then here it has called enhance measurements, right? And these enhanced measurements are things that are being tracked by default, so it's optional, right? So if I disable this, then certain things would not be tracked, only page view would get tracked, right? But if I enable this, then you will see that there are things that it will track on its own. So for example, scrolls, there is something that it will track on its own. Outbound clicks, something on its own. Site search on its own. Video engagement, file downloads. So obviously you will need some configuration for some of them. So for example, for site search, you will need to have certain query parameters that will hold the search keyword and all that. And for video engagement, this is only for YouTube embedded videos, right? But these things Google Analytics 4 is going to track by default. So essentially at the time of creation of this video, there are 6 events that would be tracked by default, and this is optional. You can disable them, and then it will only track page views. And you can also click on this gear icon and choose what you want to track and what you don't want to track. So here you can optionally choose that if you don't want to track scroll depth, for example, or if you don't want to track video engagement or other things, so that you can do over here. If you click on the gear icon, you will also be exposed to other information that is associated with each one of them. So for example, as I mentioned, that video engagement is for YouTube embedded videos, so you can see the details over here. Similarly for site search, so as I mentioned that you would need certain query parameters, so you can just put the query parameters by default. They have already put some query parameters, which is very smart of them. So if the query parameter is Q, S, search, query, keyword that you are using for internal search, and if any of these are the common keywords, so if any of them have your internal search terms, then automatically they will start getting reported in the internal search event, right? So again, if you have any doubts in what I covered just with the default tracking of Google Analytics 4 events, you can just put that in the comment section. Okay, so we are in Google Tag Manager now, and what you will learn now is if we want to track something that is other than the enhanced measurements, if you want to track something unique, so how can you do that in Google Analytics 4? Now, if you have established or enabled tags for Universal Analytics, then you might be aware that Universal Analytics for creating event-based tags, so let's take a regular Universal Analytics tag, which is the old one, we have the option to choose the tag type. So here, if we choose event, right, so it has these 4 things: category, action, label, value, which are standard, right? On top of that, if you go to the if I select this, and if you override these settings, then you can have more settings where you can set the various fields, you can pass custom dimensions, custom metrics, and the other things. But the key thing is with these 4 values, that is category, action, label, and value, right? So this was there with the event tracking in Universal Analytics. Now it's quite different when it comes to Google Analytics 4. So in Tag Manager itself, the configuration tag is different and event 4 tag is different. So just briefly covering it, I have already covered this in the previous video, but I'm again covering it, that if you look at here, then you here have just the measurement ID, and this is like a configuration. It will be part of all the Google Analytics 4 hits that are sent from your digital asset. But in case of Google Analytics 4 event, as such, you need to select the Google Analytics configuration tag, and whatever settings you do in the configuration tag, that will automatically get mapped to this particular event. Okay. Now here we have to provide event name. So like over there, we had event category, event action, event label, and event value. So here we need to provide only the event name, right? So it can be anything that is relevant to your website. Okay, so I am going to name it as generic click. Okay, so for the sake of this video, right? So this is the first step, that you need to create an event name which is suitable for your objective, suitable for the objective of your tracking. Now in terms of triggers, you can just use your standard Google Tag Manager triggers. There is as such no difference between the triggers for Google Analytics, so old version and Google Analytics new version. So whatever were the standard triggers that you are familiar with in case of your marketing and analytics pixel that you have been regularly using, you can use that. So you can use any of these triggers like custom events, link clicks, history change, and I've already created videos on all of these, so you can refer to that if you want to learn any of these. All right, but let's say since we are doing this as a generic click, so we can create for the sake of simplicity, just to keep things simple, all clicks. Let me also see if we already have a trigger that is created for all clicks. Okay, So we have this thing, generic click trigger. So if I select this, then this is a trigger that will fire on all the clicks that happen on the website. Okay, so right now what we are going to see, we are just going to start with the foundation of event tracking. That we are just going to see that if we put event name like this, generic click, and we are going to fire it on all the pages, then how does the data come in the debugger, right? And how does the data reach analytics? So let's just have a look at that. So I have named this tag generic click GA4 and have published this, but I want to show you something that is very unique of Google Analytics 4 that was not existing earlier in Universal Analytics, right? So it's a totally new feature, and the feature is, so let's start the debug view and I'll show you. Okay, now every time we have GTM_debug, okay, in the URL. So the data that you will see in the debug view that exists at the very bottom of this left pane will show you the real-time data in the debug view. Okay, so this data is only from the debug view. So if I click somewhere, right, and if we also look at the tag assistant, so we have a click interaction, and this click interaction has generic click GA4, which is a tag that we created, and then you will see that these clicks are coming, these events are coming. So generic click is the name of the event that we created. So again, revising, going here, so this is the name of the event, right? Event name, generic click, and that event name is coming over here. Now look at this. So if I further click on this thing, so you will see that it has parameters and user properties. Okay, so in parameters, these are the parameters which are coming by default, right? Now let me come back to the same point, that if we want to add any additional parameters, any custom parameters other than the generic click event name, so how can we do that? Okay, now when we add those extra parameters, they would start flowing over here. So let me show you how we can do that. So we are back in Google Tag Manager. Now this is the same tag that we created, generic click GA4. Okay, so as you can see, the event name is generic click, so it's the same thing that we have already done. Now over here you see the options to add the parameters. So a simple parameter that I have added over here is for page URL. You can name it anything. So just to keep it simple for the sake of understanding, I have kept it page URL, page_URL, and the value that we have is from an inbuilt variable that is page URL. Okay, so now if we go to a debug mode by clicking on preview, and then it will open the tag assistant, and then it will open a pane exclusively for the preview mode, right? So if we go to our website in the preview mode, right, now if I click over here or here or here, which should result in the generic click events, right? So these are, as you can see, firing over here. So if I click on generic click now, so let's wait for more clicks to come, right? So right now all these generic clicks are there. So if I click over here, expand any of those, so you can see that the new parameter with the same name that we created, page_URL, is coming over here, and it is having the right value, which is the URL of the page. Okay, so like this you can keep on adding the parameters. But if you want to see these parameters in custom dimensions, or if you want to create certain custom metrics out of these parameters, then you need to configure them. So let's look at how we would configure the values that we are passing in parameters, so that we can create reports out of those parameters that we are passing in any of these events. Okay, so now understand this thing, that whenever you are passing the parameters in any of these events, okay, it does not mean that Google Analytics would start reporting those parameters by default on its own, Google Analytics 4. So that's a difference between Google Analytics 4 and Universal Analytics, because in Universal Analytics we had a fixed schema, event category, event action, label, and value. Here it's flexible, right? So you can pass your own parameters, but the neat thing that you need to do is you have to configure them. So how would you configure them? Let's look at that. So to configure the parameters, you need to go to events, right, under events. Okay, and here you see three options: modify event, create event, and manage custom definitions. So you go to manage custom definitions, right, and here you will see create custom dimensions. Okay, Now here the parameter name that you need to pass should be the same name exactly with the same case that you are passing in your in your event in Google Tag Manager. So for example, here what we are passing is page underscore URL, where the first P is in uppercase and the URL is in uppercase. So it would come exactly like that, right? And this is the custom dimension name. Now this is a descriptive name, a friendly name with which you want to create your report. So this can be a technical name which is according to your schema, while this can be a friendly name which is more easy for the audience or the users who do not have all the technical background to use the reports. So this can be, for example, page URL from events. Okay, so you can name this, right? So now you have a new custom dimension over here. Now take notice of this thing, that you will not start getting the report immediately after creating the custom dimension. It takes some time, right? But just assume that you have created these custom dimensions. So let's look at how you would access those reports. So we are back in Google Analytics 4, and the easiest way to look at the custom dimensions is by going into Analysis Hub. So how to go to Analysis Hub? You will go to Explorer, Analysis Hub, and this is a new way with which you can create reports very easily on the fly in a very flexible manner. This is something similar to Adobe Analytics Workspace, but I really like this feature because in Adobe Analytics Workspace as well, you cannot put multiple dimensions next to each other, but you could put multiple metrics, but it was not easy to put multiple dimensions next to each other. But in Analysis Hub you can do that as well. So so far I'm enjoying Analysis Hub. Okay, now first we'll change the date range, because since the custom dimension has started collecting the data recently only, so there's no point keeping the historic date range over here. We have segments, we have dimensions, we have metrics, right? So to get the custom dimension, just simply click on this plus sign and search for the name that you provided, right? So it is not going to be the parameter name, it is going to be the name of the business friendly name that you have provided, right? So it was page URL from events. If you remember, the name of the parameter was page underscore URL, but we mapped it to page URL from events in the Google Analytics 4 UI. So if you click on apply, this new dimension would come over here. So for the sake of making it easy to analyze, we'll drag event name as well, so you can see all the events are there. For the sake of this example, I'll remove active users but rather use event count. Okay, so we have event name and all these other events as well. Now if I drag this one, page URL from events, okay, so you can see that generic click is having this particular value because generic click contains this parameter, and it's having only 3 events because this is only in the debug mode so far. We have not yet published it. If we would have published it, then all the other events would also have this particular value. Okay, now to make this report more easy, what we can do is we can just drag and drop the event name to this filter, right, and choose the expression. So we want to filter only for generic click. So if I just use this and apply it, then the data would come only for generic click. So as you can see, the data is coming only for generic click. Now I can also remove event name from here so that we have a standalone report only for page URL from events. So what is this report telling us? It is telling us that of all the generic click events, which were 77 in the chosen date range, 3 had this particular parameter, right? Now if we publish this, then all the generic click events would have this parameter. If I remove this filter, which was specifically for generic click, you will see that this number increases to 236. Okay, so this is how you can use your custom dimensions in your report. Okay, so let's see how we can create custom metrics in Google Analytics 4 and how to view those reports as well. So we are back in Google Analytics 4 now, and what we are going to look at is how to create a custom metric in Google Analytics 4. So we'll use a generic click event over here only, and the way you're going to create a custom metric is you create a new parameter name, but the value is going to be the value that you want to pass for your measurement. So for example, it can be revenue, right? And just assuming you will not put something like revenue in generic click, but I'm giving an example. And here, if you are passing your revenue in some kind of variable, so you can call that variable and set the value over here. Okay, now again, for the sake of this tutorial, I'll keep things very simple, and I'll just call a new parameter as clicked, and I'll pass a static value of 1. Okay, so this is what I'm going to pass over here. So let's just debug this and see in the preview mode, and also we will have some data in our debug view in Google Analytics 4. So just to refresh how things look again. So debug mode is on now, so I'll again click at a few places, right, and maybe here, right. So I'm just clicking randomly at a few places. Okay, so let's click right now. Here the click and generate click would have fired, right? Generate click is firing. If I go to analytics and go to debug view, then here the generate click should come again, and this time it should have the clicked parameter as well, which is having a value 1, and page URL is also there, right? As you can see, the page URL value is also changing. Okay, so what we'll do next, we'll again go to events, right, and just click on manage custom definitions, click on custom metrics, right, add custom metrics, and what is the name of the parameter? The name of the parameter is clicked, right? The unit of measurement is standard, it's not a currency. Okay, and just event, or just name it click events, right? Generic. Okay, so I'll just save this, right, and this is available now, and it takes 24 hours for this report to reflect. So let's wait for 24 hours. I mean, you do not have to wait, I'll have to wait, and I'll continue this video with that. So we're back in Analysis Hub of Google Analytics 4, right? So what we are going to do for looking at the metrics is something similar that we did for dimensions as well. So as you can see that we have segments, dimensions, and metric. So just click on the plus, and then you can search for your new created custom event. So as you remember that we created the event in the name of click events generic. So as you can see, it's showing up over here. So just select this, and this particular event will be visible for you in your metric section. Okay, so we'll just create a simple report. So drag event name as rows, and click event generic as our value because it's a metric, and this report will get populated for us. So as you can see that only this particular event that we created in the name of generic click is having this particular metric, and this is how you can create your custom metrics report in Google Analytics 4 once you have configured that. All right. Okay, so I'm in the developer guide for Google Analytics 4. I'll put the link to this guide in the description of this video. And what I want to show over here that Google has, or the developers for Google Analytics 4 have categorized the events as automatically collected events, recommended events, and custom events. We have already looked at more or less the automatically collected events and the custom events. We can just look at once again the automatically collected events. So if I open this, and this will give you the list of the events which are automatically collected. So it contains a list of both the apps as well as the web, right? So whatever is relevant for you, you can have a look at that, but this link provides the details. In terms of recommended events, so these are the recommended events that Google has put in over here, like for all sites and apps, retail and e-commerce, and the various categories. Okay, now just because it is a recommended event where Google has defined a schema for you, the Google Analytics 4 has defined a schema for you. For example, they have defined that if you want to pass login, just pass the event name as login, and you can use method as a parameter. Now here there can be a confusion because since this has been advised by Google, you will assume that these parameters would create the report on its own. So please note over here carefully that even though these are in the Google's official documentation and these are part of their recommended events, if you follow the schema, then this does not necessarily mean that your report would be created on its own, right? So for example, if we take this one where we have generate lead, Okay, now if we create an event name in Google Analytics 4 in Google Tag Manager, so that the event name is generate lead and the parameters are value and currency, all right, it would not mean that the reports for currency and value would get generated on its own, particularly for the currency. So you will still need to follow the same step, where you will need to go in your events, right? So here, and you will need to manage the custom definition. You will need to create a custom definition that this is the parameter name, right? And then whatever is the business friendly name that you want to provide, you have to provide over here. And after you do this, then only your custom dimension and metric associated with this particular event would get populated. So for example, similarly here, if you pass that the custom metric is going to be value, and you assume that, for example, here in generate lead, it can be assumed that since we are passing currency, then automatically the value that you are getting we are passing over here would have that currency, but it does not work like that. Okay, so I have just enabled a dummy event in our tag management setup, where I am passing generate lead, I'm passing value, and I'm passing currency. So I'll show you that if we go to analysis hub, okay, and I create this report with event name as generate lead, you will see that value has a certain value, but it is not having a currency, unlike your revenue or the other e-commerce metrics that are there. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So as you can see that we have the event names, and generate lead is the event name, and I have put event value as a value over here, and it is showing the value that I have set in the generate lead event. But if you just expand the dimensions and try to look for currency, which I am expecting to see as the value of the currency, it does not show up over here by default, so you need to create your custom dimension. Similarly, the value for the generate lead is not having a separate value, it is just showing up as event value, which is a default metric that is available. So if you use value as a parameter for any of the event name, that would get associated with the event value. So that is also something that needs to be understood over here. I'm just repeating it again. So this value thing, right, you can associate this with any custom event. Okay, so you can just assume that this is add underscore payment info underscore Da Vinci, and if you add value, then whatever value you pass over here gets available in the event value metric, right? So it will aggregate the values that you are passing over here, and it will show you the sum of that value. So that is also a good thing. Okay, so I hope you now understand the concept of recommended events as well. In case it's not clear, it's confusing to you, just put that in the comment section below, what's your confusion, and I will try to resolve that. So with this, I would like to conclude the discussion on event tracking in Google Analytics 4. I hope you found this video helpful. I would love if you can subscribe to our channel and share this video in your community. Thanks, and see you again in the next video.